Good evening, everyone. My name is Anita Slate, and I'm a library assistant here at River Falls Public Library. I'm sorry about the delay. We had some audio issues. Tonight, I'm excited to talk with Inland Northwest writer and author C.K. Crigger. She has published close to 30 novels and short stories in Western, mystery, and sci-fi fantasy. She's a member of Western Writers of America, and she has won multiple nominations and awards for her work. If you are watching this event live and you have questions, please write them in the comment section and I will get to them before the end. So welcome, CK. Is it okay if I call you Carol tonight?
Yes, please do.
But you do go by CK when you're writing. Is that always the name you use?
Yes.
Okay.
I did write a couple novels under Carol Wright Crigger, but
okay.
decided CK worked better.
Okay. I was going to start with, before we get to your books, do you want to just tell me where you were born and raised and how it's influenced your writing?
I was born and raised in the Spokane and Coeur d'Alene area. And I would say all my books take place in this area because I've always lived here. And I prefer to write where I know a little something about the terrain.
Mm-hmm. And you said you've always lived in Spokane Valley area?
I was born Worley, Idaho.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I've been through there
so it's about 40 miles. So.
Okay. I've been there many times, actually. Ironically, I lived in Spokane. I think I wrote to you about that for 17 years, but I don't believe I ever met you. I think you may have been at a Hastings bookstore at one point, and I
very likely
you there.
Yes.
I don't think there are Hastings there anymore.
No, they're not.
Oh, darn it! I love those. Anyway, I was going to start with maybe just going through a lot of your books, if that's okay, and just tell us a little bit about it. And then we'll ask some questions about your writing and how you came to writing. I wanted to first talk about some of your series. And I've heard that this series is one of your, a lot of people's favorites.
Well, I hope people do like it.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are asking about it a lot. If you're ever going to write more of her.
I'm sorry?
Do people ever ask you if you're going to write more in that series?
They do sometimes. And they do in my Gunsmith series too.
Yes. Okay. Could you tell us a little bit about China Bohannon and what makes her such a great heroine?
Well, she was running away from a bad life and came to Spokane to live with her uncle, and things kind of got worse. But she is just an impulsive young woman who is curious about everything, a little bit nosy, a little bit forward, and manages to get herself in and out of trouble quite a lot.
Right. So in the first book, so this is Victorian time period. What about historicals do you like?
1896, as a matter of fact.
What do you like about historicals so much?
And maybe I should have lived back then. I'm not sure.
Right. Do you want to go through a little bit about the storyline, about the bookkeeping or the detective agency, and she becomes a bookkeeper there? And
yes, and she got a little bored with just keeping the books and answering the phone. It's supposed to look pretty and be sweet, and that isn't China Bohannon.
Okay.
So, and she just kind of got the idea that she could do as good a job as the guys did. And so she set out to prove it.
Okay. The second book, 2 Feet Below, there's an interesting, she's thrown overboard and ends up in Lake Coeur d'Alene, which is a beautiful lake. If people have not seen it, you must go visit out to the inland Northwest.
Yes.
It's one of the most beautiful areas I've ever seen. So, and it just continues from there. There's a lot of, timber barons claiming homesteads and all kinds of stuff. Jockey, it was almost reminded me of Dick Francis, the Four Furlongs, about the jockey brother was killed and the horse that was favored was lame. And yeah, so anyway, let's move on to the next one here. This is another great series, and your first book was a Spur Award winner, which if people don't know, that's a Western Writers of America award for Best Western Romance. Do you want to tell us a little bit about this series?
Well, it almost accidentally became a series. I wrote The Woman Who Built a Bridge, and boy, did I have a hard time figuring out a title for that book.
Okay.
And I thought I was done with it at that time.
Okay.
And I was happy with that book, but my publisher suggested a series for it. So they say, when in doubt, kill somebody. So I did. I killed her new husband.
Okay.
And she became vengeful, but also seeking justice. And then she goes on not only to seek justice for herself, but for others too.
Is this the January character?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Shay Billings is in the first book, and then in the second book, tell us what happens there a little bit.
Well, the sheriff is not particularly effective, a little bit of a coward. And so she figures it's up to her to find out who killed her husband and why, and to seek justice for him, which she definitely does.
Okay. And then the third book, she kind of takes over with the badge and everything.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. A stolen horse and a kidnapped girl, and she seems to be the only one who's willing and able to go find the girl and find the horse and find the guy.
Right. And then the fourth one, Who Beat the Odds, The Woman Who Beat the Odds. Tell us what happens a little bit in that one.
Well, a vengeful gang, because she had put the brother of one of the characters in jail for human trafficking, actually. And he's out to kind of get her. So they come to town to rob the bank. They have a big scheme to rob the bank. And of course, she can't allow anyone to take over her town. So she and some of her good friends make sure they don't.
All right. I'm going to move on to the next one. We do have a comment already. A woman named Carrie saying, how exciting to see and hear you. You're a great author. She obviously enjoyed some of your books, so that's great. Thanks for commenting. Now, you cross a lot of different genres. Mostly you do Western frontier, but I enjoy that you also do some mysteries. You also do some sci-fi fantasy. So talk about these mysteries. The two are in a series, and then the other one's a standalone, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Hometown Burning, I don't know. These stories come to me, and I just simply have to write them. And I like the character. I like Frankie as a character, as an injured vet with a bit of PTSD. Or do I have those?
No, PTSD,
wrong?
Yeah.
But I would like to write another one of that series. I don't know if I'll live long enough to get all these books written that I want to do, but I'd like to finish that one off with a third.
Oh, okay. And then what about, did we already talk about Lost Girl Lake?
Well, we didn't.
Okay.
This doesn't have the name, but it actually takes place at my favorite fishing lake. Always a really fun lake to go to fish. And
okay.
Yes. So
Is it based in the inland? Everything is based in the
Yes.
real places in the Northwest, aren't they?
That's right.
Um, so I like some of you feature a lot of dogs particularly.
Oh, yes.
You're a huge animal lover.
Yes.
I know. Um, I love some of the names of the dogs. Like is her dog Nimble?
Yes.
And then Lost Girl Lake, Truth Diamond is the name of the heroine, and her dog Raz. I love that.
Yes.
So, I mean, that one starts off with a bang with she finds a woman's burnt hand and
Yes. Well, Raz does.
Raz does, sorry. Yeah, so I haven't read that one yet, but I would like to. So, okay, so let's move on to the next slide here. Whoops, let me get back. There we go. Now, this is the other favorite that I've heard people talk about. Tell us about this. I love the premise behind this series. It's a sci-fi fantasy genre.
Yeah, time travel. Well, this one is one of those that came to me sort of in a dream. The first one, it wasn't quite like I finally wrote the story, but I enjoyed it because the research, for instance, Shadow Soldier takes place in World War One. And to this day, I will go back, and if I see something about World War One, I just have to read it because I got so involved with the history there, and the change from horses and six-shooters to tanks and Gatling guns, and well, I guess they had them before, but Tommy guns and whatnot.
How much research do you do? Like, especially with the Westerns, there's a lot of gun research, antiques, Victorian time period.
Right. Well, as a kid, we didn't have an indoor bathroom until I was at least 10. I forget just exactly when it was. We moved to the new house. And I remember when they put water in the house, and we had a crank phone too. It was pretty rural there on the farm. So I kind of know about that time. Yeah. I just like Victorian or Edwardian days too.
The thing that I like about this Gunsmith series is, well, I always like your characters' names. They're very unusual, I think, and different. So the heroine is Bohannon Irons. I liked how she figured out how she was able to time travel. Do you want to explain that a little bit, or do you want people to read the books about it?
Well, that'd be nice if they read the books about it.
Yeah.
But yes, she somehow she is able to insert herself into the history of a particular gun, and it calls to her, and she goes to the time because it won't rest until she figures out the story and finishes what happened to that particular gun or the people involved with it.
Right. Very cool. Have you actually seen some of these guns like in person? Oh, you have.
Yes.
Where do you go when you physically go to research some of these things?
Old books, and gun catalogs sometimes. Just anywhere I feel I can find the history.
Okay.
And this one, I know I've got someone who keeps telling me that this series isn't ended. I say it is, and she says no, that there has to be one more.
Very cool.
I don't know. This is another one that I may not live long enough.
Yes. Do you have ideas for future books, like the China books and the Bohannon books here?
I think China is done.
Okay.
This one could go with another one. I've been asked to do another Hereafter book too. that I
Oh,
had people say they'd like to see a sequel to that
well,
too.
let's jump ahead then. Let's see. Well, actually, I actually jumped in with a few of your standalones. This one was an Epi Award, which is an ebook award, right? It
Mhm.
used to be Epi,
Yes,
now it's Epic, um,
yes.
for historical Western. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Black Crossing?
Um, well, it's a little hard to
That's
go back and think about these, but
that's okay.
basically, it's about a woman and the effect it has on her when her son is lynched for a crime he didn't commit. And they knew he didn't commit it, but
Mm,
they did it anyway.
okay.
And it's how she comes to terms with it. And then it involves um, lawmen that came to the town, and the bad people figured that he would be a pushover because he'd been a heavy drinker,
Mm,
which he had stopped, but
mm,
they didn't know that evidently.
yeah. There's a lot of, it reminds me of like a lot of the Westerns on TV, like James Arness and, the
Mhm,
Marshalls and all these little towns.
mhm.
Let's move on to the next one. Now, this one was a finalist for audiobook, which was interesting. I didn't know that they had a category for that, but that's amazing.
Yeah, they don't now.
Oh,
This was a category they discontinued.
oh, okay. So, Letter of the Law is Diggett Monroe, and he was a gang of outlaws, and they ambush a sheriff. Do you want to talk a little bit about that story?
Right. And with this one, Delight, there's another name for you.
Yes, the young wife.
um, while her husband is so very badly wounded, she takes over running the jail, and there just happens to be a prisoner in their jail who, he's not a bad man, he's just going the wrong way is all. But he becomes her ally, hers and the downed sheriff, to stop another gang of guys determined to take over a town.
Okay. Um,
They did that. Women, in fact, I believe in places, women or a spouse can still take over from their husband or wife if for a short term, as
mhm,
long as just interim work.
okay. Interesting. The next couple, The Winning Hand and Liar's Trail, Carolyn Pruitt, she lost her stake and there was no going back. Um, Tell us a little bit about Winning Hand.
um,
Do you play cards yourself?
no, especially poker.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
um, she loses her, she's down and out. This is the last thing she has, is a very good horse, and she takes a chance and bets her horse in a poker game, loses, and steals her horse back and takes off for Canada. And the guy who actually won the horse takes off after her. So
Okay.
this was kind of interesting because I went through, because we were speaking about names, I went through at least 3 names in the first chapter of this, and she definitely told me her name was Caroline, which seemed kind of odd since I'm Carol, but yeah, she just had to be Caroline. So it's one of
Okay.
those strange things.
And then Liar's Trail, a father is murdered, and there was army involved and debts to pay to save the ranch. Tell us a
Mhm.
little bit about this one.
Uh,
I like
well, this
the
one was my first Western,
okay.
and it was really fun taking it from the history of Rathdrum, where it was a big railroad town for when the railroad went through, and crossing the Spokane River, which is a trick,
Yeah.
and then following the river down to the old Fort Spokane on the Columbia. Uh, it just struck me as fun to write, and it was fun to write.
Okay. Here's another one, Yegman's Apprentice. Now, this was a winner a couple years ago for Best Western Romance. So that's
Mhm.
amazing. Tell us about the story. In Butte, Montana, I love a lot of Montana too, and I miss parts of that country out there.
Right. Yes. Well, I have had quite a few people ask me, what's a Yegman? And it is a safecracker.
Ah, see, I did
And
not know that.
she accompanies her uncle to open a safe, a bank vault, actually. And her uncle gets sick, and she has to take over the job, which she does, but she also sees that in that bank vault, in the file, that there's skullduggery going on.
Mm.
And they try to trick her out of not paying her, but she has saved a duplicate file. And so the chase is on here too. And this young guy on a motorcycle has gotten drawn into it.
Mhm.
This was fun to write too.
Okay.
Some of them are harder than others. This
Yeah.
one went more smoothly.
Okay. As far as writing, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I have a comment here. I have read all the China books and I never could put any of them down until I was done. She goes, I have told her that series should be made into a made-for-TV miniseries.
Yes, wouldn't that be
Yes.
nice?
And this is from Wendy. You may know her.
Oh, yes.
I actually have seen a lot of Western movies coming back on DVD, which I find maybe it's a trend. I don't know.
Well, I don't either, but it does seem to me too that, but they're not as traditional as they were,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to the next slide. Now, this is another one. I was a finalist. Now, tell me a little bit about Western Fictioneers. I had not heard of that. I had always heard about WWA, but
Right.
tell us a little bit about this group. And
Well, I don't belong to the organization, but they're open to other people entering their contests.
okay.
And I believe, although there's a lot of crossover now, that people belong to both organizations, this one kind of split off a few years ago because they did want more traditional novels
Okay.
than, and WWA is open to other sections of the genre,
Okay.
like mystery type and romance.
Mhm.
But I consider this one a bit more young adult because it does involve, well, let's see, I'm trying to think how old I had the brother, 14 or something.
Yeah, I think Keta was 12, and I can't remember how old Yester.
Yeah.
Oh, he's 4 years older than Keta. So
Oh, okay,
16.
so he was
Yeah.
16. And Keta is part Chinese
Mhm.
because her mother was raped during some of the really bad things going on with the Chinese at that time. And when Keta was born, her mother's husband, shall we say,
Mhm.
barely tolerated having her alive there at all. And when Keta is kidnapped by her father, who's found out that she's alive, he refuses to seek her out and try to bring her back to her mother. So it's up to her brother, who loves her like family, and another friend to go after her and rescue her.
Yeah, Ametta's friend, Nat, I think. Is
Yes.
that right? Nat Fontaine?
Yes.
Okay. So
Mhm.
they go after her, apparently. I
Yeah.
do have a comment on this book. Larry said, I loved Yester's Ride, a lot of action, and I want more of these characters. So that is your long list of requests here. That's awesome. All right. And here's another finalist for Best Western Romance. Tell us a little bit about Madame's Daughter.
This is a book that it starts out with a train wreck, and you may know that that is exactly what happened. With the opening of the Coeur d'Alene Indian Reservation to white settlers with the Homestead Act.
So it's Jacob, is it Jacob? How do you say it?
Jacoba, or at least that's how I pronounce it.
Yeah, and Charlie, yeah.
Yes. This one I had been going to write for a long, long time. I always knew I would get one done, but it was very different when I first conceived of the book. And I don't know, as I started writing, it just all went awry. So her new husband, where they ran away and eloped together, is kind of her mother was a very rich woman, for one thing, and a little bit Black Widow type person. So that Jacoba needed to get away, and Charlie wanted to get away too. So they eloped and escaped to this area. And in the train wreck, Charlie is hurt very badly, and she has to take care of him, and they are short of money, so she takes jobs to hold them together, and he keeps wanting more and more and demanding more and more. And he finally becomes the bad guy, and she has to deal with him.
Okay.
You notice I'm not telling the end.
No, I don't want you to tell the end. Otherwise, people won't buy your book. Now, this is a favorite of some people. In fact, Vicki tonight says, "Great interview. Alt's Air is one of your best novels," she thinks. So, talk a little bit about this one.
This takes place in the Northwest, but it's kind of an imaginary place.
Okay.
I just thought it'd be fun to do a little weird inheritance story. So with lots of danger and not so much shootouts, but although some, but just for a young woman raised in a brothel, I thought it would be a fun story to write. And I think it's one of my best ones too.
Yeah,
I'm fond of this one.
Do you outline, or are you a writer?
Oh, I'm a total pantser.
Okay, I was going to say, are you a pantser or outliner?
Yes.
Now, this is another Knox Burdett and Tinker O'Keefe are some of the characters. I just love some of your names. All right, let's continue. Now, this one you said is also very popular, kind of sci-fi-ish, fantasy.
Well, I'm not sure how sales are, but it's been a favorite for a certain group of people, and I really enjoyed this story too. Talk about real places. Have you read this one?
I have not yet.
On
my long list. A lot of books.
It's one where after 100 years, she gets back home. Mysterious circumstances.
Yes.
And she goes to her old home place, and she finds her grandfather mummified in a funny little building. Well, that is actually the pump house way over the hill from our house. So this pump house I've got the clearest vision of it.
Okay.
That it's,
and there's like mutants are at war with humans and so on. Her name is Lily. She's a Border Patrol agent, Lily Turnbow.
Yes.
Okay. And then there's a follow-up in Driven. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. But it's a few years later with different characters, but it's the same universe, you might say.
And the mutants are Sits and Tex. Do you want,
Yes. Uh,
what's the difference between the two of them?
no, Mags. I've forgotten what I named them.
Syntax, I don't know. Mutants, I don't know.
uh,
Anyway,
yeah, I can't remember what.
that's okay. That's okay. But it's like 150 years after the event, and their descendants are still
Yes.
contending with these mutants, basically,
Yes.
right? And
Mhm.
all right, let's move on. This is a favorite short story of a lot of people. Spur Award finalist, Aldi Neals' Ghost. Tell us a little bit about this story.
This is based on a lynching that took place around Rockford in, I believe it was the 1870s.
Mm.
And the storyline is pretty true to what I read about the incident, but I've made a girl the main character. I'm female. I write female characters as the lead generally.
Duffy.
And the story goes that the people who did lynch this young man, Aldi Neal, for rustling cattle, horses, mostly horse rustling, and he may have done it, but only at the orders of higher ups.
Okay.
And most of the people in this story came to a bad end, and it was accredited to Aldi Neal's ghost, but I have that it's his sister who takes care of all.
Okay. All right. Here's another short story novella that won the Peacemaker. Well, you were finalist for Peacemaker. Tell us a little bit about Left Behind.
Oh, it's a woman who has a young child who is very ill, and they're coming out west in a wagon, and he's kind of a likes to drink, likes to carouse, likes to be the big man. And when the child is very ill and they have to camp in a rainstorm, he takes off, says he's going to get help, but he never comes back. Meanwhile, the child dies. So the other two children and the mother take up, move into an abandoned cabin and somehow start running like a little hotel. And when the husband does finally come back sometime later, the woman has found a new man and nobody wants him around.
All right. I was looking at some of the other, one of the questions, I'm just going to jump and do this because I might forget later. Carrie asked, what does your writing day look like? Do you have a certain schedule that you keep to? Do you write when something enters your mind, or?
When I started writing several years ago, I was working full time. And on my breaks, I would write smidges of dialogue or things that occurred to me. And when I got home, I worked 6 to 3, so it was an early schedule.
Okay.
And when I got home, I did all the things I had to do, but at 7 o'clock, I went downstairs to my basement writing room and I wrote from 7 till 9.
Oh, wow.
So I was very scheduled then. But when I said no more outside work, I still disciplined myself to spend a certain amount of time, but I wrote mostly in the mornings then. And now I write when I take a notion, but I write every day.
Okay.
Pretty much every day. Or at least I sit in front of the computer and think.
Yeah. Okay.
Inspiration.
I think that's, keep asking questions. If you have any questions, please write them in the comment box and we'll get to them. I think we're almost to the end of our slideshow, but here's a few other short stories. Do you have a favorite out of all your books and short stories, or a couple favorites?
Actually, Left Behind and Aldi Neals Ghost.
Okay.
But a deal is another favorite because that one, when I was a kid, we raised some horses, and my dad had our quarter horse mare bred to a very good stallion, and the progeny looked like a really good prospect for a racehorse.
Mhm.
And he had to sell him. We were farmers. He made the living as a farmer. He was not primarily to go to the horse races and the training and all that. So he sold the horse
Mm,
so that could further, probably my brother's college and
right.
just whatever needed done. And it broke our, especially the girls in the family, it broke our hearts. But a deal's a deal. But the way it came about was not at all like it was. But the reason for the ending is real.
Okay.
So that's another favorite.
Okay. Um, and then I love this cover. Some of your covers are amazing. I really like some, but this one is really stunning.
Wolfpack will be very happy to hear.
Yes, yeah, some of the covers are really great.
Yes, they are. And
Tell
they
us
get
a little
better and better too.
tell us a little bit about how you got involved in this anthology, and have you met some of the other authors? Are they connected at all, or are they just all standalone short stories?
They're all standalone short stories. They are supposed to be stories of redemption.
Okay.
Uh, but actually, my publisher sent me an email and asked me if I'd like to write a story for it. So
Wow.
sure, I'm up for anything.
I mean, there's
And
some,
yes, I do
yeah,
know a couple of them.
yes, there's some amazing names in there.
Yes.
So kind of, I know some of them from the romance genre, and
Mhm.
then So anyway, um, I'm gonna get this off of here. I think that's the last slide. So I have more questions. I always have more questions. um, what? Um, who are your favorite authors when you have time to read?
Oh my goodness.
Probably a lot.
Yes, a lot.
Do you read outside of the genres that you write in at all, or do you stay?
Yes,
I mean, that's what you enjoy the most, even
yes.
reading.
Actually, I don't usually, sorry,
No, that's okay.
I've got a friend here.
Oh, yes. Tell us about your pets too. I want to hear more about your
Excuse me. Well, I had to shut my little dog in the crate because she is a pain in the toot.
pets. Is that your little Pomsky?
My Pomsky, yes.
Yeah. So what is the name of your cat there, Persian cat?
Houdini.
Houdini. Very cute.
And my dog is Hattie.
Patty?
Hattie.
Hattie. Very cool. You also, I mean, I would mention some of the other dogs' names before, Raz, Nimble, and so
Yeah.
on. Do you, you obviously grew up with maybe pets as well, besides horses
Oh,
and things that you have on a farm. So, yeah.
yes. Yeah.
I was going to mention, I don't know if anybody's a Goodreads person out there, but I am. Your average rating is actually, I think, very impressive because you have like over 5,700 reviews and your average rating is over 4.35, I think. And to me, that's a pretty great rating.
I think
So,
it's respectable.
yes, I think so because, yeah. Um, I'm a ratings watcher and an awards watcher and a list watcher. So anyway, and you also review other people's books, do you
Yeah.
not? Do you still
Yeah.
do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where are some of the sites that you post your reviews on?
Well, quite often they go to Roundup magazine. That's the Western Writers of America
Oh,
magazine.
okay.
So a lot of them go there. I post them sometimes on my website, um, Amazon,
Okay.
Barnes and Noble, anywhere I can.
Okay.
Yes, and Goodreads.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of your books are in ebook format, or are all of them or most of them?
I think I think they all are
Okay.
in ebook
And
as well as print.
yeah.
The
Um,
only one not in print is a little fantasy that I wrote.
okay.
The
I was
Crigger.
gonna mention, they're very reasonably priced. I mean, I actually bought the China Bohannon series, and it was
Mm,
only like $2.99, and I was like,
mhm.
"I'm gonna download that." So I did. Um, what are some techniques or ideas you would like to try that you haven't? Or what are some of the books that you still really would like to write?
Oh, the next one.
Just the next one.
I'm working on a 5th January billings right now,
Oh, so a woman
and
who book?
I would like to get that one done.
Okay. Do you have contracts that you have a deadline and so
I
on?
don't
Oh,
know.
okay.
My publisher is nice enough that when I turn one in, that's when it's there.
Okay.
I've mostly been able to get out 2 a year, and I've got my 2 in for this year.
Okay. What do you do in your spare time when you're not writing? Besides, walking well, I don't know. Do you have your dog and
Yeah.
do you have other hobbies, other crafts, other
Well, gardening
okay.
a bit.
Yeah.
I'm, yeah, that's about it. I read always. So
Okay.
if I don't have a book around, I would probably go out of my mind.
Yeah. I never got an answer to I know it's hard to say who's your favorite, but who do you read by
Um, well, I read a lot of Lois. Oops.
That's okay.
I've got to lift up my keyboard because I have
Yeah.
a lot of help sometimes.
Yes, I see that.
Uh, Lois McMaster Bujold.
Oh, yes.
I'm a great admirer of her Miles books.
Oh, yes.
Um, a lot of the Western mystery writers, contemporary
Mhm,
mysteries, and Westerns, of course.
mhm.
I've got a pest here.
That's funny.
Oh, wait.
Do you read Connie Willis? Do you ever go to some of the conventions at all?
Um, just Western writers is the
Okay,
only one I attend.
okay,
Yes, I have read Connie Willis too.
okay. Yeah.
Um,
It's one of my
can't
favorite.
even think right now. It's
No, it's
terrible.
okay. I was gonna say, you've done some time travel. One of my favorite books is Doomsday Book by Connie Willis, and if you
Hmm.
haven't read that one, that's an amazing story.
Yes.
Um, let's see. Who would you like to meet in person that you haven't?
Oh, that's a tough one. Probably Lois McMaster
Yeah,
Bujold.
yeah, very cool. Um, let's see. I guess I answered when obviously you said you use a Mac, right? You don't
Yes.
handwrite your rough drafts or anything, do you?
No.
You use computer. I know some current people that still do handwritten rough draft,
Yes.
and
Yes.
maybe that's the way they think best. I don't know. Um,
I do make notes as I go along. I will make a character list and try to write down some of their characteristics
okay,
so that, especially doing a series, so that I have it right there when I want to know who has this gun and who has this color horse and
right.
things like that.
Do you do like a chart of? Do you have like a plot line? Do you have a character line? Do you,
Um,
or does it just all kind of meld together as you're?
it kind of melts together. What comes next is based on what went before. I have an idea of the characters. I have to start with the characters
Okay,
and the plot kind of together, what happens to them. But the whole thing isn't plotted out.
okay.
Sometimes not even the end. Sometimes I know the end, sometimes I don't.
So just kind of a loose outline?
Yes,
Okay,
not really an outline at all, just a
yeah,
general idea. I write a short synopsis.
okay.
not that I stick with it, but
Yeah.
that's how I keep going on it.
Um, when did you first realize you wanted to be a writer?
Always.
Really?
Yes.
Yes.
The highlight of my life was when I learned to read.
Yeah.
And from that time, I wanted to write too.
Very neat.
I didn't really, I was pretty old to the writing game actually, when I really sat down and did it.
Mhm.
And my first book was 45 whole pages.
Wow.
So it seemed I needed to flesh things out a little more,
Yeah.
but I learned.
It's a start.
It is. It
Some
is.
people don't even get that far. So, um, let's see. Um, what do you think makes a good story? Just kind of, like you said, melding everything together, or
Um, First, I think you have to have good characters. You
Mhm.
need at least one or two characters that people can relate to. I just got done reading a book that it was it was good. Got off to a slow start, but
Mhm.
the storyline was good. But I never did really connect with any of the characters,
Mm.
and that made it more difficult to read. Normally, if
Yeah.
I run into a book like that, I don't finish it. There's lots of good books. There's too many books to,
I was just going to ask you that
yeah,
because I
yeah,
think when you get to a certain age in life, I too feel like life's too short to read mediocre books.
right.
I want to read great books. Um, um, did you ever belong to a writing group at all, or like
Um, no,
okay,
no, haven't done that.
okay. How many rejections did you get with some of your first writing?
I started out trying after the 45-page novel. I started writing some short stories,
Okay,
and I would get encouraging rejections, but
oh,
I got several.
mhm,
But with the advent of the internet
mhm,
publishing, there were more of them. And the first one that took my book went to you, if you pardon the saying, before it ever got published. But it did get published then finally. But some of those were started out on the internet,
okay,
which I think made it easier.
okay,
But yeah, it's not all nowadays. It's legitimate. So
yes.
yes,
Um, I was going to ask if you had any advice for new writers at all, or do you
just
speak to writing groups at all?
I don't know.
Okay. No, I just some
Not a
people do.
teacher.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
to if you want to write, you have to write. You can't want to write. You have to do it. And sometimes it's not going to be any good, so you just keep rewriting. Rewriting's the best part. That
oh, do you like editing?
I do like to
Ah, some
rewrite.
people hate that part, I think.
Yes, yeah. The first draft is the hardest for me, just getting the whole thing down, but
Okay,
I like to smooth it out and get it going.
okay.
Um, just keep working at it. It isn't an instant business to
Mhm.
be in. That it takes time, takes your life, really. It kind of takes over your life,
Yeah.
or at least it has mine.
Um, I'm trying to think. We've talked a lot about your research. Do you use real people as the basis for some of your characters? I think you maybe said maybe a couple you did, or
Um, a little bit, but I think that there's probably quite a bit of my father
mm,
in some of these characters.
yes.
Um, not not so much my husband or my brother, which is kind of odd. Also, if, for some reason, and I haven't figured this out myself yet, is I very rarely have mothers
Hmm.
for my characters, but they have fathers, and I haven't figured that out.
Interesting. That's something you realized later after. Did somebody comment about that, or did
No, they
you realize
haven't, but
that?
it occurred to me that that's fathers and uncles that
Interesting.
is a little strange.
No, for some reason, that's what you write.
It is.
What was your favorite childhood book? What memories do you have of like your early reading? What did you read when you were younger?
Um, Macy nod. My folks read a lot of westerns.
Yes. Okay.
I came by this naturally,
Okay.
and I read a lot of westerns, adult westerns, when I was just a little kid. So,
Oh.
but for children's books, probably the Black Stallions,
Mhm.
Magnificent Barb. Does that date me?
I still love some of those people. Nancy
Um,
Drew, all the way back to like Janet
yeah.
Lambert, and um, those kind of. They're still like sweet, innocent kind of stories,
Yes.
that you can just
Yeah.
avoid today's world and read something that's wholesome and clean, I think.
Mhm.
um, anyway, um, what would you have done if you hadn't written? Is there any other like pursuit that or you just had never thought of anything but writing?
Well, that was always the main thing. I've always had a big interest in archaeology and paleontology and that sort of thing, but I don't think I'm smart enough for that kind of stuff anyway,
No.
but it's really interesting.
Yeah. Do you ever have writer's block? And if you do, what do you do to get out of that?
Well, I don't exactly have writer's block, but there's days when I have a hard time thinking, okay, what's going to come next here?
Mhm.
Um,
That you haven't already used, right?
right. Yes, there is that
Yeah.
too.
Yes. I think
Uh,
the more books that you write, the harder it is to not repeat things.
yes.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I'm having a little problem with that Alts heir uh,
Um,
concerns an
okay.
inheritance. And the woman who, number 5, also has an inheritance. And I'm thinking, people are just giving stuff away like mad, aren't they? But,
That's funny. But they're giving different stuff away.
uh,
um, let's see. Do you like audiobooks? Do you ever listen to audiobooks, or do you
I
mostly read
I
physical
don't.
books?
I have some audio books that Books in Motion here in Spokane has
Yes.
published some of my books in audio, but I don't actually listen to them very often. So
Are you a digital reader as far as like an iPad, or do you read
I
physical books?
Kindle, I use
Kindle, okay.
Kindle, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's probably I probably read 75% Kindle on the Kindle now
Okay.
and 25% as the print books. It's
Do
just
you
easier, more instantaneous to indulge myself with the Kindle.
are you a library user? Do you use the Spokane
Yes,
County Library system?
yes,
I loved that system when I was out there.
yes,
Pretty much
yes,
everything I wanted to read. Um,
yes.
time is actually running out, and
Oh,
it's gone faster than I thought it was going to. If anybody
yes.
has a final question, post it now. I'll probably since we had a little couple minutes late start, I don't know what else to ask. So I'm not seeing any more questions, but I so appreciate you agreeing to do this with me. And maybe when I'm out in Spokane again next summer for sure. I have a son getting married. So maybe we'll
Yeah.
have to meet up in person. That would be
Yes, that
really
would be wonderful.
fun in between the wedding festivities. Um,
Ah.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and for all the people watching. Continued best wishes on your writing endeavors. And
Oh, thank you so much.
saw Bruce just popped on, said great interview. Thank you. For more info on any of Carol's activities, go to ckkrieger.com. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And for more details on the rest of our winter, well, it's already winter, fall events in our library, go to riverfallspubliclibrary.org and click on library events. They're all posted out there. Your support means a lot, and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.